Hi, my name is Chris Schmeeds. I'm one of the small group coaches here at The Well, and I am always pleased when I get asked to give a leadership message. So that's what we're going to do today. So if you've ever considered yourself a leader, and I consider myself a leader, although I question that quite often, when was the last time you took a good look at how exactly you're leading? Or if you're younger, have you found that style yet that you're going to lead with? Or even better yet, do you ever have one of those days where it seems like it's going to be a great day and then everybody that you're leading around you kind of just sinks your ship? It's really frustrating for sure. Now, I came across one of these stories that we've talked about a million times, but I want to put it into a little bit of a different perspective right now. In Luke 15, we all know the story of the 100 sheep. We sing about it all the time, we talk about it all the time. But just in case you don't remember it, it explains the story of having 100 sheep. And it says that if one of your 100 sheep gets lost and you know the other 99 will be okay, that you should do anything you can to find that one. And when you find it, you bring it back and celebrate. In fact, in Luke 15, 5-7, it says, "And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who is saved than all of those who do not need to repent." So I feel like in this world we have this tendency of just writing people off. And with so many people being lost sheep right now, are we just willing to write everybody off? So here's my challenge to myself, and I wanted to look at this in that way. Like, how am I behaving right now? So instead of saying, well, they're not holding up their end of the bargain and they're making their own bed, or they're not behaving the way that I think that they should be, I need to go back to those conversations that I used to have with them when they would talk about what their goals were, what they were trying to achieve. And if I had talked to them about that before, like, how were they planning on getting there? And if they're not doing those activities, that's kind of where I know that something is probably off with them. So this was my wake-up call. That is where I used to shine the best. I would hunt people down, ask them what was wrong, and help them walk through it. I would chase them down literally. I would help them through addiction, or I would help them through just family issues or health issues, or whatever it may be. Whatever that struggle was that was keeping them from their goal, I was going to be there for them, and I was going to walk through with them. So in this last season, maybe I'm not doing the best of that. And right now, it's one of those times where we really need to assess ourselves as leaders to see who's out there that we can help. So maybe it's more noticeable to me in my world, in business, because I'm in sales. You know, sometimes we have different ways of judging things, but in sales, it always comes down to one thing. We look at numbers, right? The success of the salesperson. And if that person isn't succeeding, then we tend to say those things that I said earlier. Well, they're not doing the work. Well, they're not doing this or that. But the thing that I need to remember is that they are all people. And I believed in them at one point, and I brought them into my circle, and they did share those goals with me, and I do believe that they're capable of doing that. So what can I do to step back into their world and help them? And I'm not just talking about in a job. I'm talking about any of your friends that you have seen that have a goal that you know of, and they're just struggling with getting there. They're so far away from that. So I'm going to take that a step further and really talk about what it can look like with us as leaders, kind of stepping away from what our picture of leadership looks like. And in this, I'm going to talk about David. So we all know David. He was literally God's chosen leader, right? He was a soldier. He was a fighter. He was brave beyond belief, right? He was a builder. His people believed in him as he became king because he had this vision and he had this relationship with God, and they built this great kingdom underneath him. And they believed in him and they followed him. But the story that we know about David as he gets a little bit older isn't really a great story of leadership at all. It's actually just the opposite. It's about a struggle. So you know the story. with Bathsheba. He becomes enthralled with a woman that lives close to him. And while her husband is away in battle, he beckons her to come over. They form a relationship and have an affair. Soon after, she finds out that she's pregnant. So to cover this up, David has the grand idea to bring back the husband and get him to spend some quality time with his wife. Well, he brings back this man named Uriah, and he says, go spend time with your wife. But Uriah is not going to do that. He actually believes so much in the vision of God's work that David has cast up to this point that he feels bad to go back and sleep in his bed and eat and drink when others around him are still doing that work. They're guarding the palace. They're guarding the city that they live within. So he actually said this when David asked him why he didn't go back with his wife. He says, the ark in Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. So when David hears this, his plan is kind of foiled. He asks him to do it again, and again, Uriah doesn't go home and spend time with his wife. So now his dirty little secret is going to be out there. He knows that. And for this to be something that really challenges David, it's an amazing thing. But I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So David, if you remember, had built this great culture, right? It's the first thing that we notice in David's kingdom, that he has people that will stand up for what he believes because he is God's chosen one. But this is the line that I think is overlooked so often in this. It says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David is a king, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So let me ask you this. When was the last time that you put together this plan? You're the leader, you're the greatest, you're the one that should be leading this, and you're just like, you guys go ahead and do it, and you expect great things to happen. It just doesn't happen that way. So in this, where he stepped away from his duties, it trapped him. Instead of being honest with Uriah, his ego got in the way. Frankly, if you think of this, how brave he was. He stood up to Goliath, a giant, and beat him with a stone, right? But he's not brave enough to stand up to one of his soldiers that believes in everything that they are doing to tell him what he has done with his wife. So instead, he sends Uriah back to the battle lines and has him killed. That's not great leadership in the least. But the main thing that I want us to see here is that he got trapped because he was no longer leading. He was just being. He was just there. He wasn't checking on his people. He wasn't checking on his mighty men, his soldiers. He wasn't leading the way that he used to. And thus, the enemy just kind of set in. So back to my first point. Are you leading like you used to? Are you getting your hands dirty? Are you engaged and know where your people are? I'm not saying that you're going to go through things like David. You may not go through the hardships that he went through at this time. But I'm telling you this. If you aren't putting your energy into something that God has given you a great ability in, the enemy is going to come after you. Period. He's not going to let you lead the same way that you're going to, and thus those people around you will suffer as well, because sometimes they need your leadership. So as we go into this season where leaders really need to lead, we're coming out of a pandemic. We're coming out of this weird time where we're just seeing people just not quite waking up all the way. We need to be those people that are inviting to them and understanding what they're going through. So to allow God to work through us, here are 3 things that I think that we should be doing. 1, we should ask those people around us how they're doing. And don't always expect a transparent answer. They may not be transparent until you're transparent. When you start to give them some of the things that you're going through, they're more likely to be talking to you about those things. Second, if you have talked to them about their hopes and dreams, remind them of what they were. And if you know what their plan was to get there, kind of assess it with them and help them get back on that track. You're a leader. You can sometimes recognize a different way to do things. It's not saying that you have to come up with the solution for everything, and they do have to do that work. But just that conversation sometimes can kickstart them into something new. And third, if you don't know what their hopes and dreams are, ask them, and then help them plot out their course. So here's my promise to you today. Allowing God to work through us makes us better leaders. Caring about others' situations is godlike. It's what he wants from us. And if you are able to, with God, help those around you, you're going to start seeing that those people around you that right now may be sinking your ship on a daily basis, they're going to stop doing that, frankly. They're going to be in a place where they are really striving towards those goals and stop sinking your ship. So the main thing that you can do is help them become the people that they want to become, because you know and you believe that with yourself and with God, what they are capable of. And with that, I want us to reassess where we are as leaders and help people really just lift themselves up in this season. Thank you again.